Welcome back to the shop, everybody. So today we are on the OBS. Yes, so we're going to see if we can mark a few things off the list today. We're getting really close to being able to at least start body working the cab section, hood, fenders, all that good stuff. We do have to get the grill out to Brian, get that full print, so we'll still have a lot of work to do up here, but man, we're getting closer and closer. Waiting on a few parts in the engine compartment too, so we can finish up some of that mock-up. It is 17 degrees this morning. So you guys up north, you can keep this stuff. I don't want it. We don't need it down here. I don't like it. I actually got up, saw how cold it was, and the first thing I did was start looking at houses further down south. It's like, I just can't do it. This is just terrible for me. What we're gonna do today is, first thing, we're gonna try to build pockets for these CVF hood hinges. And I've gotten a lot of DMs about these hood hinges, so I'm gonna show those to you in a little bit. We're gonna first template out for this pocket. These hood hinges are gonna kind of sit down in it. That way you're not looking down in here and seeing the tire and all that stuff like that. So we got a little trimming to do there. And then if we get that done, we're just gonna go to the next thing and see how far we can get, because my goal now is to try to get far enough that we can just start getting this thing into epoxy and start some body work. So let's get after it. All right, so first we're gonna make sure, just double check, we've got these opened up enough. Yeah, plenty. All right, so I thought I left about 1 inch all the way around them, so that looks pretty good. First thing we're gonna do is, I've already got a mark right here. This flange, this little pinch weld, kicks out past the firewall, so it's just overhanging. We're gonna cut that off flush with the firewall. That way we can make this a complete enclosure and you won't see any of the firewall or anything. It'll just be the metal panel. So let's go ahead and get that cut off, and then we should be able to start making a template. Getting ready to remove the hood real quick just to gain some room in here to work. So I wanted to show you these CVF hinges before we did that, and these are really cool. They bolt on in the factory location down here, then they're a really thick billet, so they look really good right out of the gate anyway. And then this slides, so it's got plastic bushings in here, so when you lift and lower the hood, it's sliding within the hinge. Makes it just really effortless and smooth to use it. But the thing that really sold me on these was the adjustment. So this is where it bolts into the hood, obviously, but these are cams. So you can loosen up the bolt into the hood, put the Allen in the cam, and as you turn the cam, you see how the hinge is moving? So if you do all four that way, that's gonna get your adjustment. So as opposed to having to move the hood around and all that, all your adjustments right here in these cams, which makes it really, really quick and easy to adjust them. So really cool hinges. So we've got the outer section of the pocket built. The side piece against the fender, we did a break on that just so it will follow along with how the rest of the panel is built. Once it's welded together, it'll just look like one piece still going through there. The back piece has a little bit of shape to it, so we shaped that up so it'll follow along with the firewall. And then what we're gonna do now, we're gonna scribe this out and then we're gonna trim it to fit these panels now. So that blue stuff I was spraying a little bit ago, that's a layout dye. If you metal fab at all, you know exactly what that is. If you don't, that's great for when you want to be really precise. So we'll spray that on. That's great because it dries really fast. It takes the sheen off the metal, and then when you pull a scribe on it, it's really easy to see that, and then you're being really precise with your cuts. So we're going to scribe around where we sprayed that now, and we should be able to trim that out, and then we're going to do kind of a rollover on this outer piece. That way it'll transition nice into the panel. Once we do that, we should be able to tack each of these pieces together. We're going to pull it off, build the bottom, weld it on the table. We should be able to drop it back in and then weld it up into the panel. But so far, so good. These magnets are really great too. Super cheap off of Amazon. I don't get anything expensive for this. We have a lot of different magnets that we'll use for holding stuff together if you need to weld or whatever. But I like these little guys because you can stack them up. And when you stack them, you can get, you know, obviously different widths, different heights, whatever, and you'll know exactly what your measurement is. So like here, we've got 2 stacked all the way across. When we go to scribe it, we know when it's even with the top that we're even all the way around. All right, so we're over now with our Woodward Fab bead roller. This is our smaller one. We've got our big one that stays stationary over there, but we keep a smaller one. That way we can kind of move it around the shop if we're just doing some metal fab somewhere else. But this one's actually kind of cool because not only is it a little smaller scale, this actually starts out as a manual bead roller. It's the one that's got the big hand crank on it, and you can just turn it and kind of bead roll through there. Pretty inexpensive machine, but it also has an option to add a motor, which we did on this one. Makes it really nice to use. Plus it uses different size dies, which is nicer because we have a couple of different sets laying around, but we keep our radius dies on this one. So what we're gonna do with this is we're gonna roll a little bit of a radius into the edge of it. So what that's gonna do, it's gonna give it a little more of a curve. So instead of putting this piece in there and tigging it up and just having kind of that sharp 90, it's gonna just make a nicer transition. So let's get it in here and see if we can get this shaped up. So these radius dies are really nice. They come in different sizes. That way you can get a different shape of radius. But basically all we want to do, so you can see on this lower die, it's got a little bit of a wall right here. We're going to use that as our straight edge. So we're just going to butt that up to it, and then we're going to run it in there. I normally like to make a couple of passes as opposed to trying to do it all in one shot. So we'll get it started. We'll just make sure we keep it butted up, run it through. So with the wheel off, you can kind of see inside the fender here where we built these inner panels. So we've got the tabs going along the back. We have to finish welding those up. That's where it bolts in. We also have these flanges up front. We have to weld those in, so we'll do that when we get the panel off. So how we built them all the way over to the frame rail. That way we could have as much turning radius as possible, but everything looks really good. Bob left himself a little note in there. Now we have to build the bottom to our pocket, so we're going to get this inner fender off of there and do that on the table. Looking good, got it all welded in. I'm liking that. So we've got a little more finish work to do, a little hammer and dolly in and stuff, but we can handle that when we get to the body work stage. We've got the brackets welded on, we've got these channels welded on where it all bolts in. So I'm happy with that. So I think now we'll get it in there, we'll test fit it, see how it all looks, how it all functions, and then we have to do the other side. All right, let's get it in there. So we got the driver's side pocket all finished up. That's looking good. So there's one more thing I just wanted to go over real quick before we finished all this up, and that is metal finishing. So right now I've sprayed a little bit of that layout dye onto this panel, just in a section where a lot of work's been done. We've got 80 grit on a block, and we're just going to kind of block over it just like we're doing body work. Now when we do that, you'll start to see that it's got some highs and some lows in it. Obviously we've been welding on it, we're heating that panel up, we're shrinking it, so that metal's moving around a little bit. So if you really want to dial this thing in, put 80 grit on a block, kind of block over it, and you'll start to see these low spots. And we won't do the whole thing because it's a bit time consuming, but you see any of the blue that's left over, that's obviously a low. So we can go in, we can hammer and dolly on those spots and start to bring it out, which I'll show you in just a second. And then where we've sanded through, those are obviously our highs. So we can kind of start to pinpoint where the areas are a little wavy and start to finish that out. Now, I'm sure you see on social media all the time, like these guys doing these bare metal builds, and they're like awesome and they're flawless and all that, and that's really cool. And there are certain applications that it absolutely applies for, and those guys are specialists at that. We can go through and do the same thing with all of these, but you got to start to kind of figure out where does it make sense and where it doesn't. So if we finished this whole panel out and had it absolutely perfect, when we send it over to the body shop, those guys are still going to prime it. So it's still going to get a polyester primer. They're still going to block it to ensure it's done. So you got to kind of find that middle ground of where you feel good in your metal, where it's only going to get just minimal filler or minimal primer and then get blocked out. And that's really kind of where this already is. But we'll start to work some of this out. You can even see down low where we did some stretching and shrinking on this panel, just even putting it in the jaws of that, how it creates these low spots in the panel. So you can just real quickly work some of this out. That way you just know you're getting just a skim coat of filler or primer, whichever one you need to use. And you're just gonna get a better result because you're minimizing how much material you're putting on the panel. Look how close we've gotten that with just a little bit of hammer and dolly work. So that's getting really close. We've got a couple of little spots that are still left there, but I wanted to wait to show you another tool on those. But this just goes to show, like, if you're in your garage and you just have basic hand tools, you can metal finish it out. So this is so close that, I mean, just a couple of coats of primer is going to fill in any imperfection that's here, but man, it's pretty nice. So the hammers and the dollies I really like are the Dent Fix Equipment hammers and dollies. Heavy duty, work really nice, super balanced in your hand. I showed them on the red OBS a while back. You can go back and check that out. And Dent Fix also has a couple other really cool tools that would be any body shop's dream, which I also showed on the red OBS, but I'll be bringing that to you soon on this OBS because we'll have a few things that we'll have to address on the cab. But before I finish this, there's one tool that I have found that I really like it. So if you have a big planishing hammer in the shop, it's really cool and they work well, but if you've got kind of a big awkward piece, sometimes it's hard to get it in there and kind of run it around in the planishing hammer. So I had somebody tell me about one of these a couple of years ago, so I hopped on their website and I picked one up. Not the cheapest tool in the world, but they just kept bragging about how great it was, and it came from coachsmithing.com, and this is the Ox planishing hammer. We use this thing a ton. It's a great tool to have if you're doing any kind of metal fab. So basically it's a handheld planisher. So we can go through with this, get a dolly on the backside and just kind of planish this thing out. So before I finished it, I definitely wanted to show you this because I've really liked this tool. So let's see if we can knock this out, get this back on the truck, and call it a day. So just about 30 seconds with the ox right there, and super nice. Obviously we could keep going, we could make the whole thing perfect, but not necessary because it's all gonna go through body work and get around a primer. So it's looking good. Let's get it on the truck, see what it looks like. One more thing checked off our mile-long list. I promise, it's longer than this, but we are slowly checking them off, so that is a good thing. So really happy with how the hood pockets turned out. They fit in there really nice, looks cool. And like I said in the beginning, you guys have asked a lot about these billet hinges, so I'd say if you're in the market for some, I'd definitely look into these. Super happy with how they look and how they function. So the next thing up for this truck is we're waiting on some stuff from ProCharger. I want to finish mocking up the engine compartment. We've got a pretty cool intercooler coming from them, and I want to go ahead and build the tubing just to make sure we're not going to get into any of our metal fab. We kind of built it, you know, anticipating where everything was going to go, but we definitely want to make sure because we don't want to get everything body worked and then have to get back into it. The cab is really close for body work other than the factory seams. Like where the back of the cab meets the roof, there's those factory seams up top. They filled those with like a metal fill of some sort, and even the sandblaster, that guy couldn't get it out. So we're gonna have to strip that out and build some patches for that. And then pretty much the exterior of the truck is ready to start body work. And then one of the next things we'll have to look at is the bed. We've got the custom bumper we need to build. We got to figure out how we're going to do the tail lights, so that should definitely be a fun one. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Doesn't cost you a thing, but helps us a ton. Also have merchandise below. Got a bunch of shop t-shirts. Go check those out. You guys have really been wearing those out, which is awesome, so we really appreciate that. And I guess we'll be seeing you next weekend. Got to figure out what to do next.